Way back in the spring of 1990, 10-year-old me was given a $5 allowance. In search of something to spend my money on, I came upon something fantastic at my local convenience store newsstand. It was then that I started a lifelong obsession with the gold standard of sequential art, the comic book. Now, as an old man, I have decided to open up some old boxes and dig into my comic book collection. I decided it's time for me to review and analyze the illustrations and artists that made me comics crazy. What's good, everybody? This is Chris Crazy House, and welcome once again to Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. And we are finally here, folks. This is the conclusion of the return of the Sinister Six. And we're going to be looking at it, looking through this comic. I have the original copy from 1990. I also have the collected version in this graphic novel. So let's take a quick look at the cover here for the final issue of the Return of the Sinister Six. And we got Dr. Octopus choking the life out of Spider-Man. And he's very emphatic about it because he's telling him to die 4 times over. So this is a gimmick that you might want to try maybe every once in a while. I would not advise doing this all the time where you have your hero in danger, because otherwise it kind of makes your hero look weak. Like, why is your main hero always in this amount of trouble? But for this type of story, and every once in a while, it's okay. It's okay to have your hero at the mercy of the villain and have your hero in danger here. And this is very close up. You notice this. This is not a full body shot. You really got just their 2 faces right there in front of you in the camera. And you know, Dr. Octopus, you could probably smell his breath the way he's right in Spider-Man's face. And you can see that he has not only his tentacles, but also his bare hands around Spider-Man's neck. So he hates Spider-Man. You can tell just by the way this is designed here. He wants him to die more than anything else on planet Earth. And this is a very well done cover. And once again, I would not try this type of gimmick all the time, but every once in a while, it's okay to have your hero in mortal danger like this. So when I saw this on the shelf when I was a 10-year-old, I had to get it because I was waiting to see what happened in the next issue. But also, this cover just looked crazy. Like the fact that Spider-Man is at the mercy of the villain like this. So let's turn the pages and take a look inside. Now, if we remember, I'll show you here just in the original of the last issue here, that the Hobgoblin actually sprayed Spider-Man with the poison that Dr. Octopus was launching into the atmosphere. And we were all worried that Spider-Man was about to die, right? So, of course, we want to run back to the shelves 2 weeks later to see what's going on. Is Spider-Man really going to die from the poison? But here he is just kind of sitting there gagging. And even the villains are wondering, why is he not dead yet? So probably the weakest of all the splash pages. This probably could have been drawn a lot better. It's pretty just sort of matter of fact. Spider-Man just kind of sitting there on his knees, kind of gasping. And you just see the villain's feet kind of looking around him, wondering, why is he not dead yet? So out of all the splash pages that we saw on the very first page of all the other books, this is probably the weakest one in the finale. But we were so in a rush to get back here. I think as a comic book audience, we probably weren't thinking about the artistic stylings of this splash page. Okay. So we get here, some of the members of the Sinister Six are surrounding Spider-Man. We see Sandman is still turned into glass, and they're wondering, why is Spider-Man not dead? They're like, what's going on here, Dr. Octopus? You said your poison will work immediately. You know, this is the same poison you lost into the atmosphere. What's going on? So that's when Dr. Octopus decides to reveal what his true plan was. And I can't tell you just how convoluted this truly is. This is probably one of the more convoluted master plans ever by a master villain. And I'm not sure who exactly came up with this story. If it was David Michelini who did the writing for this, did he come up with this? Did some of the editors come up with this? Did someone else in the bullpen come up with this story? I'm not sure. But in my opinion, it's almost kind of, not only kind of convenient, but also kind of like maybe seen as like a last minute change to the story. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be the main story or not. But let's explain it here if I can. So apparently it's not a poison that Dr. Octopus has launched into space. It's actually a cure for cocaine addiction. So he launched a cure for cocaine into space, and it's going to diffuse into the atmosphere. And when it diffuses into the atmosphere, anyone who uses cocaine will not be addicted to it anymore. In fact, if they try to use cocaine from now on, they're going to go into convulsions and it might actually kill them. And the only antidote is burundite, which is an element that Dr. Octopus had the rest of the guys of the Sinister Six steal for him. So he's going to have the only antidote, and Dr. Octopus plans on basically ruling the world that way, by himself. And the other members realize that they've been tricked, that Dr. Octopus is not going to sit there and help them, or he's not planning on sharing the wealth or sharing the power. They try to attack him, but he winds up just sitting there smoking a cigarette and blocking it with his arms. And he lets them know, hey, look, the police are coming. You guys might want to run, you know, so they all skedaddle out of there, knowing that Dr. Octopus has basically betrayed them. But we knew this from the beginning. If you were, you know, a comic book fan or just, you know, bad guys in comic books, they cannot be trusted. And Dr. Octopus is probably one of the slimiest of them all. So they all kind of get out of there. And as they're about to leave, Spider-Man wants to follow Dr. Octopus, but Dr. Octopus says, hey, look, don't follow me. Here's the gun that changed Sandman in the glass. If you want to change it back, go fetch. And he throws the gun into the ocean. So Spider-Man has to go get that first. So once again, a very convoluted master plan come up with by Dr. Octopus. Not something that I was expecting. And even as a 10-year-old, I was somewhat confused by it. I don't know who came up with this story. It kind of seems like something come up with at the last minute. And it's going to change a little bit more as time goes on. And I'll explain that when we get there. Okay. But you just get a chance to see how this story kind of progresses as Spider-Man puts a spider tracer. That's another one of Peter Parker's inventions, so he can kind of pick up on Dr. Octopus a lot later. He goes to retrieve the gun and changes Sandman back into his normal self. Now, when the police show up, he lets people know that Sandman actually helped them or helped Spider-Man. He helped him try to fight the bad guy, so don't arrest him. But let me explain to you what's actually going down. And I guess he somewhat tries to explain Dr. Octopus's master plan. And I don't know how he explained it because it seems kind of iffy to me just as a plot point. So as we get back to Peter and Mary Jane's apartment, Mary Jane looking very sexy there. She said that she's going to go meet with the director from her show. And unbeknownst to her, this is actually a setup for her stalker, Jonathan Caesar, to get her by herself. And she's getting ready to go there. And Peter, he's going to go talk to some of the scientists to figure out what they can do about Dr. Octopus's so-called cocaine curing poison. So we're going to figure out what they're going to do. Now, the problem is that this so-called poison or whatever that Dr. Octopus put into the atmosphere is actually starting to erode the ozone layer. So now they've added that onto it. So I guess the fact that he was going to cure cocaine and anyone who was on cocaine was going to die from convulsions that was not enough of high stakes for this story. So now they're dealing with the fact that the poison is destroying the ozone layer. So that's added on as a danger, or as a, you know, something that we have to stop. So Spider-Man has to go get the so-called birdite from Dr. Octopus in order to save the planet. And once again, very convoluted in my opinion. When you make stories like this, it's just my opinion that you should probably keep it a little bit more simple than this. It should be a straightforward goal, because like, who wants to have to go from one thing to another? Like, you have to like remember all of this nonsense that they're kind of throwing at you in order to figure out, okay, what is the end goal? What is the hero trying to save us from? You see what I'm saying? So the fact that you have to try to make your audience remember all this, that's not a good way to go. That's just my humble opinion. You folks can let me know how you think about that in the comments section. But in my opinion, this is way too convoluted of a master plan or story or whatever to figure out. You want to keep things simple. Think about the original Star Wars. The rebels had to blow up the Death Star before it blew up their planet. Something very simple. That's how you do it, right? You don't want to go too overboard with it and lose your audience. I know this is a different medium than movies, but still, you kind of want to keep things a lot more simple than that. So, as we get back to the story, Mary Jane goes to meet the director of her soap opera, but finds out it's not him, it's Jonathan Caesar. We remember in the last issue that Jonathan Caesar actually went ahead and killed the director while he was in the hospital. And now he's telling Mary Jane, hey, look, why don't you come away with me on my Learjet? I got a little secret island that we can go to and be together forever. And she basically tells him to take that island and the Learjet and shove it straight up his backside. Okay. And that's when he starts getting a little weird, sad look on his face, the sad simp face, as I call it. And he decides that, you know, he's going to kill her. He's got pulled out a knife and said, well, if she's not going to go willingly, then I'm just going to take her dead body there. And this is what a lot of these psycho simps do to people or women that they get obsessed with. Moving forward, Spider-Man's been flying around in his helicopter, hoping his spider senses will pick up the area that he put that spider tracer on Dr. Octopus. He finds him at a airfield in New Jersey. And Spider-Man is going to jump down there. And he's saying, I got to go do this alone because Dr. Octopus is very dangerous. And I love this panel right here. This is actually one of my favorite panels from the book. This pose of Spider-Man jumping down from the helicopter in the background. So this is actually something you would probably see more from Todd McFarlane. This very much looks like something McFarlane would do as far as the pose goes and the webbing kind of floating all around. Eric Larson does a decent job of it, though. Not bad at all. I really like the pose that Spider-Man is in, and you kind of get a sense of him jumping into action. So we cut back to Jonathan Caesar getting ready to cut up Mary Jane with his knife. And right before he does, that's when the cop shows up. So the cop that was talking to Mary Jane earlier and interviewing her about her stalker, he shows up. And not only has he killed all of Jonathan Caesar's henchmen, he puts 3 shots in Jonathan Caesar himself. Now, this is actually pretty violent for a comic book back then. This is not something you would normally see, especially not in a Spider-Man comic book. Someone actually getting shot 3 times and you see the blood is actually red there. He hit him 3 times in the chest. That's pretty gruesome there. That's not something you would normally see, but it actually shocked me. And there's a little bit more of a surprise coming next with that character. Because she, you know, Mary Jane's wondering what in the hell. You basically just murdered this man right in front of me. And you're not telling me, you know, you're supposed to be a cop. Like, what are you doing? And that's when this dude reveals that he's not a cop at all. He's just some weird fan. So this guy is also obsessed with Mary Jane. So now you got another sad simp giving you the sad simp face for Mary Jane Watson. So now we're getting to the action part. So this is where Spider-Man has his final showdown with Dr. Octopus. And Dr. Octopus is sitting there mixing up his antidote for his quote-unquote cocaine cure. And Spider-Man pulls in there. Now, Spider-Man wants to kind of sneak in, but, you know, Dr. Octopus knows he's there. He's like, you might as well just come on in. And when he tries to go in there, that's when the battle starts. And Spider-Man's trying to explain to Dr. Octopus, like, you know what, your so-called cure or so-called poison is destroying the ozone layer. We got to get the antidote so we can fix it. Dr. Octopus doesn't believe him. And as he's still mixing things up here, his arms are fighting Spider-Man. Very cool and very well done in this execution. This is something that I love seeing. It's been done several times in this particular miniseries. But here we get to see a version of it where Doc is, you know, mixing up his antidote and the arms are fighting Spider-Man. And these lighter versions are basically Spider-Man moving throughout the space. And this is where Spider-Man is now. Let's take a look at it on the collected version. So that way you get a better view of the action here. So take a look here. You can see Spider-Man kind of weaving his way throughout the arms. And this is not easy, Jack. You know, trying to keep these arms, like, knowing exactly what direction they're going. And they're all trying to attack Spider-Man. So a very cool way of showcasing this type of sequence. And as Spider-Man is still trying to weave his way through and trying to his best to, you know, outmatch and get away from the arms. The problem is, no matter what direction he moves in, the tentacles are going to hit him somewhere or somehow. And one of them hits him in his face. And as he's pulling himself away, he grabs this big old, looks like a cement mixer or something like that, and throws it at Dr. Octopus. But even that doesn't seem to work. Doc is blocking everything he can. Oh, it's not a cement mixer. I forgot. It's a part of an engine. So, because they're inside of like an airplane hangar. And as Spider-Man is trying his best to get close to Dr. Octopus without the arms getting in the way, he winds up getting caught. And this is where we have the final splash page of the return of the Sinister Six. So this is a great one here of Spider-Man fighting Dr. Octopus and getting all tangled up in the tentacles. So this also could have been drawn ahead of time. Okay, I'm almost thinking this is somewhat similar to what I saw with Spider-Man fighting Electro in that one splash page. This could have been something similar here because it looks like the airplanes are kind of added as an afterthought. You see, like they could have not been there. It could have just all been a blank space. It might have even been better if they just left it blank with Dr. Octopus sitting there just holding Spider-Man back. And Spider-Man's trapped right here. I don't see how he could get out of that. You see, at this point, Dr. Octopus, all he's got to do basically is just start pulling and he can rip Spider-Man to pieces. But this is not easy to draw. I really enjoy seeing all these tentacles going around in loops and loops and loops. And, you know, he has stuff around his neck, his arms, his legs, his hands. I don't know how, how you can keep that straight in your mind. But when you're an illustrator, sometimes you just got to buckle down and draw stuff like this. And it's not easy all the time. Let's take a look at it in the original version. And you can see, even with the faded colors, it still looks pretty good. Okay, it still comes out great. Spider-Man looks like he's trying to reach out and grab Dr. Octopus, but he's stuck right here because he's all wrapped up in the tentacles. So what Spider-Man decides to do, he decides to web up on something, and he winds up using that to pull himself, and while in doing so, pulling Dr. Octopus as well. And in order to not have to draw all of this and have to draw all those tentacles again, Erik Larsen does the smart thing and creates like kind of like a little silhouette instead of the action. That way you can show their full bodies and still get the idea of what's going on. So there's a little bit of a cheat, but a smart thing to do because you don't want to have to do this. Let me turn back. You don't want to have to redraw this, the two full bodies and a whole bunch of tentacles again. Okay. It's bad enough that you got to draw it right here as well. You draw a little bit of it here, but they're drawing a lot smaller. So this is probably a little bit easier to draw that than it was to draw that splash page on the page before. So it winds up causing Dr. Octopus to kind of flail around, and he hits an engine that actually has some gas in it, causing a large explosion in the hangar. And while Spider-Man, he's going to try to go for the Burndite. But before we get to that, let's cut back to what's going on with Mary Jane. And this guy confesses that he's really just a file clerk and a crazy fan of hers. He's obsessed with Secret Hospital, the soap opera that she's on, and how he tried to kill Peter, how he's the one that dropped the light on the director, and how he was trying to, how he killed Jonathan Caesar now as well. So this guy's just one weird, obsessed fan. And he's saying basically that he's, you know, he loves Mary Jane, and if he can't have her, no one can. So he's going to basically go kill her and become a legend in his own mind because he killed his obsession. Back to the fight with Dr. Octopus. And Dr. Octopus finally figures out and realizes that Spider-Man must be right. The fact that Spider-Man's not trying to fight Dr. Octopus so much as he's trying to get this antidote. So Dr. Octopus says, okay, what the hell? You go ahead and take that. You must not be lying if you're not trying to fight me as much as you're trying to get this antidote. So he lets him take it. And Dr. Octopus uses that opportunity to go ahead and escape. So he escapes in his little aircraft, and he's hoping that he can get, and Spider-Man's hoping he can get that Burndite there in time so he can stop the antidote from burning a hole in the ozone layer. Now, back to this. This is, once again, a very gruesome panel of Jonathan Caesar sitting there dead with his eyes open and blood streaming all over his shirt there. That's definitely something that you would not normally see in comic books, at least not in these days. Maybe a year later, especially once Image Comics got started up, the violence got ramped up a lot, especially in a lot of independent comics. But the mainstream didn't really do this because the Comics Code would not allow it. I'm not sure exactly how they got away with doing this right here. But this fool is so obsessed with Mary Jane and the soap opera itself. She says, you know what, since I'm going to be dead, you won't know what happened next week on Secret Hospital. So let me just give you a preview of what's going to happen. Come closer, I'll let you know. So the fool, he actually gets in there. She sprays him with some hairspray, and then she winds up knocking him out and knocking him unconscious. So in a way, what this is showcasing is that Mary Jane is very capable. She got herself into a terrible situation, but she was able to get herself out of it. She didn't need Peter Parker or any other man's help. She actually wound up saving herself. So that was partially, I think, what they were going for here. And done in not in a bad way, because she's not, you know, doing backflips or doing any type of crazy moves to save herself. Basically, she lures this guy in with his own craziness. Then she knocks him out. And, you know, he's such a chump anyway. I can believe that this woman could knock him out. So now we're getting towards the end of the story, and we're getting our final cameo in the return of the Sinister Six. So all through this, we've had several cameos by several different superheroes, and now we got the mighty Thor showing up. And he's probably the best cameo because at least he actually does something. So it's not like with Nova or Doctor Strange just kind of flying by. Thor actually shows up to actually help. And you know, they're trying to figure out how are they going to get this antidote into space. They don't have another rocket available to shoot it up there. But Spider-Man said he's friends with the Avengers. They got someone who can help, and that's Thor, since Thor can fly into space. And Thor says, you know what, Earth is my home. I'll do whatever needs to be done. And he winds up taking that up into space and saving the day. So throwing it out there, is able to disperse and winds up destroying all the poison that Dr. Octopus uploaded into the atmosphere. And everyone's sitting there waiting to find out, and they find out that it actually worked. So they've saved the day. In a way, Spider-Man's a little upset because he's thinking like, you know what, cocaine is a terrible thing. It actually is hurting a lot of people. Maybe it would have been good if they were, you know, got their addiction shut off by this so-called poison. But once again, this is a very convoluted master plan by a bad guy, in my opinion. I don't think they should even waste their time with that type of story. They should have kept this simple. It should have been, if they want to erode the ozone layer, that should have been the master plan of Dr. Octopus in the first place. So here's the final page of this mini-series. And it's kind of like, I won't say it's so much lackluster, but it kind of ends very quickly as far as like whatever resolution is to be had. And what you basically have is Peter Parker and Mary Jane coming together, and they're both about to tell each other what they've gone through that day, because they've both gone through a lot. But then they decide to just say to hell with it and give each other a hug and be happy for what they have in each other and be happy for the quiet time that they have within their home. So that's the end of the return of the Sinister Six. And I'm glad I was able to journey through all 6 episodes, all 6 issues with you folks here on Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. So I'll probably do like a little bit of an extra, just kind of, you know, doing a comparison of all of the splash pages and maybe even looking at some of the old ones done by Steve Ditko. So we'll be doing that in probably the very next episode of Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. I appreciate having you all here. I hope you guys enjoyed the very first mini-series that we've done on this particular show on my channel. I really want to do some of the other mini-series that I talked about, like the Black Galaxy Saga, Streets of Poison. I definitely want to do the sequel to this, which is called The Revenge of the Sinister Six. I do have all original issues of that, as well as a collected version. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. But there's a lot of books that I have in my repertoire, and I might let you guys vote on what we do next as far as miniseries or just other episodes of this. I'm also thinking about possibly doing some comic reviews exclusively on Patreon, only because they cannot be shown on YouTube. So there's some books that I have, like my Savage Sword of Conan comic books, that have a lot of nudity or violence in it that YouTube might not allow. So I might make those like Patreon exclusives or something like that. But I'll let you know how that goes as we get further into the future with this review show, because I definitely like to do more things than just old school American comics. I have a extensive classic manga collection, everything from Bio Booster Armor Guyver and Crying Freeman and Blade of the Immortal and Fist of the North Star. So I have a lot of comics and a lot of manga and a lot of graphic novels that, you know, I would love to showcase, but some of these things probably can't be shown on YouTube. We'll see how things go. We'll see how things go, though, in the near future. But for right now, we're going to concentrate on the classic comics that I have in my collection. And I will be back with you folks next time on Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. Please go ahead and like this video. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel, so that way you know next time that I'm here with new comic book reviews. And make sure you go ahead and share this with anyone else that you know is a fan of classic comics and classic graphic novels and classic comic book art like myself. Once again, folks, thank you for being here, and I will see you next time on Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. Peace.